Within our souls, we all possess a dream which lay dormant until intrigue strikes its match and sets the torch we carry ablaze, leading us down the path of the unknown towards our dreams. As coaches who are former high-performance athletes, our personal experiences have shown us that a coach, parent, or even a fellow athlete have the potential to either illuminate or extinguish the dreams of young athletes. Nothing is lost from the candle which lights another. We are here to share our stories and our passion to illuminate the champion within, empowering coaches, parents, and athletes to keep the flame of their dreams burning eternally. You are listening to Illuminating Champions with Michal and Ashley Anton.
Welcome everyone to episode 2 of Illuminating Champions. We want to thank everyone so much who tuned in for episode 1 and thank everyone for their support. It means so much to us. For those of you listening for the first time, my name is Ashley and I'm here with my husband, Michal.
Hey, how are you?
Today, we also have with us a very special guest. He is our mentor and our personal coach, and his name is Mark Patterson, also known as the brand artist. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So Mark helps us as coaches define who we are and make sure we solidify our mission. We love working with him. And he's very helpful to us. Every coach needs a coach. Every athlete needs a coach. And that's why we have him here today with us.
Well, in episode 1, we talked about how each of you got started in gymnastics and how you were professional athletes and how Michal got involved in coaching. So let's talk today about, Ashley, how you made that transition from a competitive athlete into coaching.
Okay. So my story is very different than Michal's. As you heard from Michal, it was normal for him to become a coach after being an athlete, and it was considered really his only path. For me, of course, growing up in America, I had any choice that I wanted. And honestly, I did not want to become a gymnastics coach when I was a young child. I just wanted to go to the Olympics and then do something else afterwards. But that's not how things went. I actually retired from gymnastics fairly young at the age of 15 due to injuries and repetitive injuries. And while I was recovering from my injury, it was really painful for me to be in the gym because I had a really bad injury. I tore everything in my elbow and needed surgery. And at that point, I knew, okay, it's time for me to stop. I don't have the correct coach with me to guide me, and I keep getting hurt, and it's not doing me very well. At the same time, we did have a coach in my gym, and I was very fortunate. My parents actually owned my gym. They purchased the gym from someone else while I was already competing gymnastics, and they did it with the intention to help me grow as a gymnast. Even though it didn't really go that way, I really appreciate the effort that they made in order to do that. But unfortunately, I was not always surrounded by the best coaches, and neither were my teammates. And I say that because we were away at a competition. My mother was coaching, and we had a coach with us that was handling a particular team. And during the competition, she did not show up. And we're like, where are you? And she's like, oh, I have the flu. And of course, we're like, okay, feel better. And we handled things right there on the spot. I was actually too young to be permitted to coach at the competition. And we had special permission for me to be on the floor, basically, because I was an athlete. And then we came back to the gym, and the coach wasn't there. She wasn't picking up the phone. And long story short, she just never came back without saying anything. And we had no coach anymore. And I'm watching all my younger teammates left with no one to coach them. And I told my mom, okay, I'll do it. And she's like, what do you mean you're going to do it? You're 15. I know you're going to do a good job, but are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I'll do it for free. You don't have to pay me. I want to help them. And that's how I got into it. And it's kind of crazy because I didn't have, of course, a mentor. I didn't always have a good example to learn from, but I did know I definitely don't want to do this, this, and this. I may not know every single technique of what to teach yet, but I will make sure I learn. I'll use what I already know, and I will 100% make sure above all else that I at least have every single girl walk out of the gym feeling good about herself, feeling confident, gaining life skills, and knowing that she is of high value no matter what level gymnast she is, because those were things I felt I missed as a gymnast, and I felt many gymnasts miss. So that's really important to me. My philosophy on that developed right away. Being thrown in the water,
Yeah.
I said, okay, this is what I need to stick to, and then the rest is history, I guess.
So you were just thrown right into it and
Yeah.
had to make do. So I guess it worked out well, right? I mean,
It did work out well. I obviously fell in love with it. I never stopped coaching once I started, and that's actually how I met Mihail. So it did me well in my life for many things.
that's fair.
Obviously, we are married, and we are lucky to share the same love of gymnastics, and we get to work together every single day.
Yes.
But like I had said also in episode 1, it was so special to me to meet someone coaching that I could relate with. And he was really the first person that I met that I could feel like we have the same exact philosophy and the same things are important
Yes,
to
because
us.
first time I didn't even notice her. That's how focused I was in coaching. I was at the competition and I didn't. She was talking to the guy at the time we was friends.
So you were at the competition?
He was watching the competition.
I just came to America. I was here for like...
And on the sideline, he was talking to his friend, and I was like, I was there with my mom. She was coaching, and I went to actually be with her. She was working at a different gym than me at the time. And I passed him, and I did notice him, but he did not notice me.
You cannot not notice me. You know what I mean?
But I did he was so focused, and that's one of the things that caught my attention, other than his apparent good looks. It did catch my attention because as a coach, that's how I coach. And he was very fixated on what was going on. And he wasn't even coaching at the meet. He was just watching, and he had, just begun kind of working with the girls a little bit, but he was very focused on what was going on. And that's not something that you see all the time. A lot of coaches go to competitions and it's like a social event. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah, like a lot of people, I think, especially in USA gymnastics, when they meet me at competition, they think I'm very... Not that I'm not cocky, because I have to be honest, I am cocky, but I'm so focused on my athletes that I don't interact with people too much. And then they think I have this kind of like attitude, but it's not, because I'm not there to really make friends. I'm there to give my athletes the best attention. You know what I mean? Like, if my athlete needs a mat, I need to see that they need a mat before they ask me to put a mat. If my athlete needs help, I need to see that they need help before. And then being a coach is not being how to say it, at a competition. You're not there for social media. You're there for the athlete.
Right.
They are the most special in that moment. That's their moment, and you're there for that. That's your only reason you are there as a coach, is to help that athlete perform well during that moment, which is also the most stressful moment in their life. It's being in the competition arena.
Yeah, you got to be selfless.
Because in the gym, let's put it this way, the trainings in the gym, and that's in every sport, the training outside the competition, it's hard. It's physically hard. It's mentally hard, but you have the second chance. Understand? Like if you come in gymnastics and you go up on the beam and you messed up your routine, God forbid, and knock on wood, you didn't get injured, you fell off the beam, you stand up back and you go, you try the trick, you land it, right? But in competition, you have one chance. Then for me as a coach, I have to pay attention to you, because I have to see how you feel emotionally, what advice I give you, how I give you the advice, when I give you the advice, do I give you an advice, what type of advice I give you, how I guide you to the emotions that you are. Like, I have to understand a lot of things about you in that moment that are very sometimes almost invisible.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
very
my focus
isolating.
is on my athlete. Like I need to see what I cannot see.
Mhm.
And that's my biggest fear, to miss something that I cannot adjust right away to make my athlete perform the best. And then when I go to competition, obviously, like my eyes are on my athletes. I don't care who's in the arena.
Very cool.
Right.
You
So,
can bring them the Miss USA. You know what I mean? I don't care. Like I'm not
Miss
gonna look
America.
Miss America. I don't.
there you go. So actually, when you did that first coaching thing because the coach didn't show up, how did your athletes take it? I mean, were they shocked, surprised? Was it a bit awkward, or did they just, roll with it and
They
accept what you were doing?
they were fine because they were my younger teammates, so they were really happy about it. And I mean, their parents at the time were happy to have somebody fill in. But honestly, of course, getting started that young, I did have challenges with
Mhm.
parents trusting if I was going to be doing a good job or knowledgeable enough, which I fully understand because I
Sure.
was really, really young. But by
Mhm.
the end of my first season with them, the parents changed their perspective and were very thankful and happy with the work that I did with them. So I'm really honored that they gave me the chance.
Mhm.
And it was them giving me a chance. Every time you coach someone, even now, of course, we feel we're blessed to have that chance from the parent that they allow you to work with their child
Yeah.
because they're giving them to you, they're trusting that you take care of their child in every way. Their life is literally in your hands, physically and
Mhm.
emotionally. So that's a huge responsibility, especially for someone that's 15 years old. And I did understand that being a gymnast myself and knowing how I was affected both physically and emotionally. So I've always been really cognizant of it.
Well, it
You
sounds
see,
like you knew enough about the physicality of how to do the things, but
Yeah.
I guess that you led mostly with your emotional connection and working on the emotional side of the athletes when that you thought maybe was lacking with the other coach.
I did. I knew the technical part too. I did compete up to level 10. So I was very familiar with skills and
Mhm.
how I thought they should be taught. Naturally, I'm pretty creative, so that helps a lot. But yes, I did have to continue learning, and I feel like we always have to continue learning. That's part of why I really wanted to work with Mihail. I
I'm gonna
wasn't working.
I'm gonna say something
Okay.
here. I'm gonna go a little bit back. You see, she said that she's happy that the parents give her the chance to work with the kids, and we are thankful even today. Like that's how we approach it, right? We, I feel thankful to the parent that brings the child to my gym because they give me the opportunity to show my value, right? This is the beauty of America, because in my country, in the system I grew up, I give you the chance to make your child a champion. I give you the coach. That's how the attitude is. Understand?
Mhm.
Where
Mm,
in America, it's a mix between, because like the parent is the first one who has to trust you, right? To give you the opportunity to work with that young athlete.
right.
And they give you that, it's like a blessing, right? They give you that blessing. And also you give back them the opportunity to the chance to make that child a champion. It's a collaboration in both sides. It's
Right.
not just one sided. And that's very, for me, that was very interesting coming to America because it was a new concept.
Yeah.
And I had to navigate through it and learn it. Like, and when you don't speak the language and you don't know the culture, it's a little bit confusing in the beginning because you come from a place where it's like you the one that decides, you the one that's the
Like in a position
Mhm.
of
yes,
authority,
yes,
but
or authority.
yeah.
Where in America, it's not like that. You have to be very, very humble as a coach. And
Hmm.
also, you see, she said about coaches learning. Like, doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. Doesn't matter how many Olympic champions did you make. You always, always have something to learn.
Right.
If you don't cocky and that big of an ego that you think you don't, you are going to find out in a very, very
You'll
bad
find
way
out the hard way.
that you're not a god. You're just a human. But you always have to have your mind open to
Hmm.
listen to even the ones that are like you think, you see, because coaches, they are like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? Even for coaches, you have levels, right? Like in everything.
Right.
Even though you look at the coach and you think like, okay, that person is not at my level.
Mm-hmm.
You may learn something from them if you're smart enough to open your eyes and open your mind and watch and listen, and
Actually, I'm going to say a secret. Coaches that are just starting off sometimes are way more creative than coaches that have been doing it for a long time, because they have to be. They need to create. They need to find ways that they understand what they're doing, and they're more apt to try to find ways for the child to understand what they're doing. So experienced coaches can always learn from a creative new coach. It's not just the
and it's
opposite way
much easier
around.
for like a very famous coach, right, to like kind of plateau themselves, because you get to the position, plateau themselves, because you get to the position when you are like, I make an Olympic champion. Like, that's your passport, right? You go to someone, you show and say, look, I make this champion, right? And you just live on that. And now because you make an Olympic champion, you look at everybody else from the top down. You're not gonna, how to say it, you're not gonna evolve yourself because you already did it. Understand? And that's a big common mistake with coaches. You see a lot of coaches that win a championships and after that they don't ever win again. It's because they're not evolving with the sport.
And gymnastics
And
always
gymnastics,
evolves.
like her coach, the coach that she talks about with the injuries and all that, was like that.
Yes.
Long
He
time
was.
in, I don't know, 1978, he had a girl that compete Pan Americans, and then when her parents hire her, they hire him, not her, sorry, my English is bad. Him, they hire him based on his resume, right? That he was at the Pan American 20 years before. But since that Pan American, he never evolved with what coaching is.
Right.
Because sports evolve like everything else in life.
Right. And particularly gymnastics.
Technology evolved, everything evolved, like sports evolves. It's different. What gymnastics was 10 years ago, you cannot coach the same way because the level of difficulty is so high. The tricks are so different. The technicality of the tricks is different. The power to execute the tricks is different. The mental to execute the trick is different because the tricks are more difficult. Like everything evolves. You have to evolve with the sport.
Right.
You cannot just say, I make an Olympic champion.
You both have interesting ventures into how you got started into coaching, and certainly your experience with Romanian coaches was a very strict, kind of on the verge of abusive. And Ashley, you come at it massively from the athlete's perspective, so I assume you were much more caring and concerned. What would you guys give as your biggest advice to coaches who are just starting out?
To not coach with ego. Have ego, because everybody has ego. Someone who says I don't have ego, no, we have ego. Every human being, God gives us ego for a reason, to teach us how to be humble. Because without ego, you cannot be successful. Ego is that drives us to want more money, to want first place at the Olympics. That's the ego. But you cannot coach with ego. Ego is something that drives you. Like, for example, I have a big ego. I don't hide the fact that I do want to make an Olympic champion. I did want it in Romania. I want it when I come in America. That's why I come. I want to prove that I can make an Olympic champion the way I want it. And I want to make it for America. And that's a big ego, right? But when I coach an athlete, my desire, my ego doesn't have anything to do with my athlete performing. If my athlete cannot match my ego, they cannot match my ego. I'm going to try to match their ego. That's my job as a coach. Understand? And a lot of coaches, that's where they make the mistakes, and that's when they become abusive. It's when you fall for your ego and you coach with ego. And it's not just for the coaches, because the parents do the same mistakes. I'm going to make a lot of people mad saying that. You see, like, the difference in Romania, the parents just in the last, let's say, 10 years maybe, are more involved with the sport, and they have a saying in how the child does it. But before that was just how it was, you go, they put you in the gyms are all governmental, they put you in the Olympic Center, like you live away from the family the whole year, you come home just for holidays. Like the parents didn't know much about the life that you have in the Olympic Center. Where in America the parents are fully involved. And you as a coach, you have to have a very, very, very good relation with them. It's like almost like a family relation with the parents, because they have to trust you.
Right.
And you have to work with the parent direct, and the parents had to trust you in order that that parent can come to you as a coach and tell you whatever they feel they have to tell you that will help their child perform well. And you have to trust the parent enough that you can tell them everything that you have to tell them in order for that child to perform well. Then it's a very personal relation, so to speak, to have.
What do you think, Ashley? What would your specific one big piece of advice to a new coach?
I was going to finish just one part of his idea and then I will tell you. But, here the athlete is residing with the parent. In Romania, the athlete is residing in an Olympic center. So that makes a huge difference, because once they're out of your watch as a coach, they are with their parent. And that's why it's so helpful for everybody to have great communication and be on the same page, because the lifestyle here is like that. And it's very nice, because then you can all add to the benefit of the athlete. It's not one-sided, which that's, I think, the huge difference. For me, someone that's just starting to coach should focus on doing it from their heart. So that goes along with what Michal said, and always remembering how they would feel, if they were in the athlete's shoes. So if they were struggling with something and they were already frustrated, or they were getting embarrassed, or they didn't feel well, how would they want their coach to approach them? And then try to approach the athlete like that and be cognizant of that all the time. And of course, that's challenging because everyone is human, but you have to make sure that you do it. Always stay educated, always stay aware of like what's changing and what you can do better, and really be passionate about it. You have to go home and you got to be honest. You have to go home and think about how the practice went and self-reflect and think what you can do better next time, which is the same expectation that you have for your athlete. You need to hold yourself accountable for those same things. And also, it's important to, when you're having an open communication with a parent, or if you're working for someone, to be honest in everything that you say, and also be receptive to what they say without getting insulted, especially if someone's trying to help you, like another coach or who you work for, or if a parent came to say, you said this to my child and she misinterpreted it and feels bad. And then you need to be able to have that trusting relationship and maybe explain yourself and be able to talk to the athlete. So communication is super, super important.
Because look, as a coach, like if you want to make someone very good, like you want to make an Olympic champion, right? You are going to expose yourself. You are going to make mistakes. You are not all perfect, and you learn. Right. Coaches also, doesn't matter how good you are as a coach, doesn't matter how many champions you make, you always learn from a new experience. Some athletes always going to put you in a situation that you never witnessed before.
Right.
And most of the time, like an athlete, you are going to make a mistake dealing with that situation because you never had to deal with it. Then you have to be very honest, and the parents has to be also very honest, because sometimes coaches, they make a mistake. And I'm not saying it as an excuse, especially like I'm talking about USA mistakes, right? They make a mistake without
inadvertently
really meaning it. It's just because they didn't know. You can mismanage an athlete, mismanage an athlete in the wrong direction without really wanted to do it. It's just you don't know. Then you have to have that type of relation with the parent, where the parent, like I go back, the parent have to trust you, to speak with you openly, And you have to trust the parent to speak with them openly and don't take things personal. Because sometimes when the parent comes and tells you as a coach, like, look, you make my daughter do this in the gym and she took it the way you told her to do it, and she took it because she's young, she's 9, 8 years old, right, 10 years old, she didn't understand what you want, and you didn't explain it, you didn't say it. I'd say the way you said it came across like that. But then if the parent trusts you, they can come to you and be like, look, she came home and she was upset because the way you said it, she thought like you punished her for it. And then you go there, you explain, say, no, I didn't, like it. I apologize, I didn't want to come across that way. And then you have to make sure that in the future you don't make that mistake again.
Right.
Understand? Like you cannot get mad at the parent. It's like, oh, look, this parent came to me and told me this. Like, I hate them. Like they think they know better than me.
So it's interesting to view what you do from the outside. We think of gymnastics as the few minutes that the athlete is performing and how well do they do, etc., physically. But what I'm learning working with you is that there's the massive behind the scenes, not just the physical training, but the emotional challenges that the athletes have to go through and the relationship that you have to form with them and that they have to form with their team members to make it right. How could you provide some advice to parents about the depth of what this is all about when they're new to the world of competitive sports?
You can go.
Okay. So their child is going to experience every single emotion possible while being a gymnast, especially being a competitive gymnast. And she's going to experience them at a much younger age than a normal person would. And the parent needs to be ready for that. They need to be cognizant of it when it's happening, because children, of course, are not always the best at vocalizing how they feel. So they need to be intuitive and, really see how their child is feeling at all times without pressuring them to talk about practice or making everything about how well they did something, because that can go down a whole other wrong road, which we can discuss. But I would say be ready for all of the emotions to come and be ready to talk to your coaches, be ready to talk to your club owner, whatever the relationship is. In our scenario, we own the club and coach. But you need to have a great relationship and an open one with the coaches. You need to ask for their advice, what they feel for your child. And same thing, don't take it personally. Take it from a professional standpoint.
This is my advice for the parents. Ask the coach that directly coach your daughter. Whatever question you have, whatever things you don't understand, approach them humanly, correctly, and respectfully, and ask them. Because a lot of parents, they make the mistake where, like, for example, it's a competitive sport, right? Then now you have your daughter doing this trick and the other kid in the gym does a different trick. And now the parents sits in the lobby and they start talking to each other, why that one does this and and then the discussion becomes toxic, right? Yes. Because already you have these emotions when you feel your child should do more, or the coach is keeping her back, but you don't know exactly the coach professional decision in that manner. Then the best is talk to the coach. That's why I said it's a very personal relation, and it's a very trustful relation that has to be between the coach and the parent, because you have to trust the coach that you can go there, sit with the coach face to face and say, look, I want my daughter to do a run that handspring tuck like that girl, or I want my daughter to compete level 7 or 8 or 5, whatever level she is in gymnastics. And I see that girl moving up in level, but my daughter does not. And then the coach is going to have a professional explanation why.
Right.
Understand? And you have to trust them with that, because as a coach, parents has to understand, like, the majority of the coaches, like I said, like the athletes, we have a big ego. We want our athletes to win. It's simple as that. There's no coach that really goes to a competition. It's like, you know what, today I'm going to watch my girls, my athletes, whatever boys, girls they are, whatever sport they do. If they come in last place, they come in last place. I'm happy. No. Every coach wants to go there and wants to be the guy that his team is the best team. Then obviously we are going to try to do the best for your athlete because we want them to be successful. Then our professional advice, you have to take it professionally. Like not to think that, the coach says she should do this for a while, and then you're like, oh, he doesn't like her. No, if I will not like her, I will tell you, like, you know what, find another gym, because we cannot work together. Find another place where you can go and be happy. That's why I said also be honest as a coach. It's very important to have that honesty as a coach, because then people know that when you give an advice, you are honest and they trust you. That's how you build trust. Takes a little time, because it's hard for a parent to hear your child is not the best, your child is not ready. Understand? But it's just how life is. Not look, I'm going to be honest with you. In all the sports, in academics, right, you have levels of everything for a reason. And it's not like we don't make them. It's like a natural selection kind of, right? You have kids that are very talented, and you have kids that are a little bit less talented. You have kids that are very, very smart, very intelligent right from the beginning. You have kids that takes time to develop that intelligence, right? You have kids that are very focused from the beginning. You have kids that are not focused from the beginning, and it takes time for them to learn how to focus. And then their progression, their evolution is a little bit different, and the parents has to understand that too, like humbly and respectfully, right? And the coach has to be honest. Like, you cannot coach for money. You cannot coach because it's just a job that you want to make money. Because then you coach with your ego. Then you're not honest. Then you're going to take money from a parent and put their kids in a program that the child doesn't belong over there. And at one point, that's going to show. And it's not going to show in a good way for the child. Understand? Then the parent's not going to trust you. Understand? Then that forms a whole entire toxic environment.
Right.
And it is, I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I come from a place where they was very strict, right? And I grew up like that, and I came to America, the place was still the same way, let's put it this way. But I never understand in America why you have problems, right? With abuse, and then I start understanding the society, right? And it's business, it's money. It's, like a lot of sports environments, they look just at the money that they can make with a child, and then they don't take the right professional decision for that athlete. And then you put kids, like I said, you put kids in places that they don't belong, and then you hurt them emotionally, and then the parents sees it, and then the parents don't trust you. Then when someone comes around that's honest and try to tell the parent, like, look, this is how it is, this is what we have to do, the parent.
So that concept of relationship is absolutely critical.
Yes.
A good coach has to know how to be a good coach, but
Yes.
beyond that, they have to form a great relationship with the child, the athlete, so that there's trust there, and they see them as a mentor and someone who's there for them. But also, then you have to build that same trust and communication with the parents. That's something
Yeah.
I think no one really, the public doesn't really think about.
No, and it's very important for the parent to also be able to mirror the expectations of the coach once the athlete goes home. If our expectation is that the child is focused in the gym so that she stays safe and she becomes more successful with her progress, then at home, her parent needs to remind her, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. You need to concentrate. You need to have an ambitious mindset and set goals, because of course competitive gymnastics, you need to fulfill certain skill requirements in every single level, and that's something every gymnast spends time working towards. But if there's a lack of emphasis on the child really putting forth their best effort every single practice at home, she's always going to listen to her parent, who she loves more than anything in the world, more than she's going to listen to her coach. And then it's going to affect her progress in the gym, or even sometimes her safety, because if she's fooling around or not fully focused, of course she could get injured. So there has to be that mirror of expectation. And that's why it's so important to have good communication between both sides. So you can say what's expected, and the parent can be knowledgeable of that and mirror it. And if of course, they really don't understand it, they should ask. And if they feel like that doesn't align with the way that they want their child's gymnastics experience to go, then it's America. You can go find a gym that is more conducive to your way of thinking. And that's the beauty of being in this country and being able to go to whichever gym that you want to. But on the back half of that, parents also have to, they always have to look at the effort that the coach is giving. They need to feel the coach is genuine, so that has to come from the coach. But they need to realize too, most coaches really, really do care about the kids. They care about what they're doing. And it is, as we just discussed, a very intimate relationship in the way that you're putting your whole heart into what you're doing. Because in the end of the day, why are those kids coming to the gym? It's because they have a dream. Then you're not just working with any type of material product. You're working with something that's non-physical, and that's that child's dream. And every coach needs to be cognizant of that above everything else. So
you see, like, if I make a product and I make it wrong, right? I come to your house and you pay me to paint you the house, right? And I paint it wrong, and you see like mistakes on the walls and that. You can come back and say, hey, Michael, look, man, you make these mistakes and you go back and fix it, right? But if I coach an athlete and I guide them wrongfully towards their dream, 99% of the time, you're ruining it. They never can go back in time and fix it, especially in a sport like gymnastics. Gymnastics, it's a sport that's like, was a guy that was used to walk on the between Niagara Falls on the rope, I think, for attention.
On the tightrope.
On the tightrope, right? Gymnastics is like that. It is a sport that you walk on the straight rope. You don't have much room for stepping on the side. Then when as a coach, you don't do your job correctly and you are not honest, you make the athlete go this way. And then when they start going sideways, it's very hard to come back, you know. Understand? And it's very important as a coach to be able to understand the athlete and understand the parent.
Right. Well, that's a really good thought. It makes me think, switching to the athlete, if you could tell an athlete just one thing that they should always think of, always put first in their head to push themselves forward, what would that be?
That they are worth more than the gold medal. You see, we always think gold medal is the champion, right? It is. At the end of the competition, the one with the gold medal around his neck is the champion of that competition. But being a champion, like I told you in the past, we talk about, is not just winning the gold medal. Being a champion is a whole attitude that you have to have. Understand? And sometimes going through that journey to win a championship makes you a champion without winning the gold medal, because you go through that process, right? You go to the struggle, you go to the hard work, you go through all those things. And at the end, you come out a champion.
Well, I think we confuse being a champion with standing on first place.
Yes.
Sometimes they're two different, well, not sometimes, they are two different things, because the person standing atop the podium doesn't always have the most champion attitude, even though they got there. And sometimes the person standing on fifth place has a better attitude that carries them through life as a champion and as a role model. And standing on that first place, especially in gymnastics, because in girls gymnastics, there's 4 events, but in boys gymnastics, there's 6. So you can place on each event, and then you have something called all around, where it's all of your scores added together. So you have multiple chances to medal during one competition, right? And then, of course, there's teams you can place as a team. So your place on that podium is temporary, even within the same competition from event to event. So kids need to realize that they need to think about it like this. We start like this in girls gymnastics: vault, then bars, beam, floor. So let's say on vault, you didn't medal and you were feeling bad about yourself. Oh, I'm not good at vault. I'm the worst one here. And then you did great on bars and you got first place. And then you're feeling like a champion, right? Because you're standing up on the podium, and then they call beam and you got third and you're no longer first place. Well, you're not in that moment not going to focus on that you're not standing on first place, because you're still feeling just proud of yourself and being in the moment. And I think kids need to remember to be cognizant of that and feel it all the time, because when it's happening at a competition, it's not so noticeable to them because they're expecting that their place is going to change in that moment. They know it's possible and they know that it's going to happen. They're not going to get first place on everything, but maybe they won't even get a medal on something or at all that day. But then when they're at practice, however the competition went, they also need to remember that that was a temporary moment and a temporary success or a temporary, mistake that they can overcome. So they are worth so much more than that gold medal.
Look, one second. I interrupt you here. I give you an example. Years ago, right? I was sitting in an audience with my parents, and we was at the first competition of the season, and she was on the floor with the girls. And my girls was lining up to start the competition, and my team was very good team and very funny girls. Like, they were so funny. And they were lined up. First event, line up. The first girl in line, the shorter, the smaller one, she's such a funny girl. She's still doing gymnastics. She's so funny. She likes to talk. She's doing dance too. Very, very hilarious girl. Very funny. And when she was very young, oh my God, she couldn't stay like in one place. Like, you will tell her to do something and she will just, like, if the music starts in the gym, like it was a song she likes, she starts dancing, right? And now I'm sitting with the parents in the audience and I'm watching. And the one in the front is dancing. It's like a club.
Hip hop music.
Was a hip hop music, and she's there and she's like rapping around, like. And I tell the parents, I'm like, you see, she's the only one who doesn't pay attention. And I said it funny, and the parents answered me funny back too. They was like, we just want her to do her best, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, no big deal, like. And the competition finished. Right? We go to the awards. My team wins. The girls wins. All her teammates place. First place, second place, third place in their age groups, all of them got medals. And I'm like, now it's surrounded by the parents. I'm with actually like close to the podium area. The girl's coming off the podium and everybody's happy. And she walks to us with her mother and she's crying. Like, and I look at her and I'm like, honey, what happened? And she's like, I think the judges forgot about me. I'm like, what? She's like, they didn't give me any medal. And I look at her and say, hey, honey, like, as nice as because it's like, it's a hard moment. Like, I don't want to tell her something and then like hurt her more emotionally, right? And I told her, like, they didn't forget about you. You just didn't win. As good as I could say it, I told her, like, you just didn't win. And then I come back to the gym and I reiterate them. I use that as an example. And I said, you see, guys, remember when I every time tell you, don't do your best. Don't put in your head, I want to do my best. When you come to practice, whatever you do in life, say, I want to do the best out of this, not my best. Because your best sometimes, it's last place. Mm-hmm. And that's your best. Mm-hmm. You have to be okay. Like, if you want to just live your life at your best, and that's your motto in life, motto is correct?
It's your prerogative.
Yes, that's fine. But you have to be okay with the fact that most of the time your best is not going to be the winning situation, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to be a champion, if you want to win, if you want to be on the first place, if you want to be one of those people that people are going to be like, wow, look, she's here or he's here, you have to strive for the best. Right. Yeah. And then that girl got a week after, won Florida 9-7.
In a harder competition.
In a harder competition, right? Then the week before, she didn't win nothing. Like, she didn't even place in the first 10 gymnasts. On any event, no all around, nothing. The next week, she's winning floor. And then after that competition, because every other, after competition, I always sit down with my girls and I go through the things that happen in competition with them. I asked her, like, are you happy? She's like, yes, of course, she won, right? And I'm like, do you really think that in 1 week you got from last place to first place, like you got that much better? And she looks at me, it's like, I said, no. The only thing you did better was focusing and wanting to win, wanting to be the best. That's all changed in 1 week.
Yeah.
That's what you
Mindset.
change. It was mindset. It was not like her skill got better. No. You're not going to, in gymnastics, you're not going to improve your execution from a
Right.
8.2 to a 9.7 in 1 week. It's a very hard sport to improve that much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that gets us right to the name you chose for your podcast here, Illuminating
Right.
Champions, because it really personifies the style of your coaching, that you help these young people believe in themselves and develop a champion mindset through the sports. So your coaching is tempered with how to be the best athlete, but even as importantly, if not more importantly, how to be the best person. So
Yes.
Right. I
talk
mean,
about that for a minute.
I said it before in the first episode too, and I'm honest about it. Not everybody is going to be an Olympic champion. Not everybody is going to be a national champion. Not everybody is going to be a regional champion or a state champion or champion of any kind. Like you have to understand that you are going to go through a process that most of the time you're not gonna achieve that number one place. But what you take out of that gonna guide you in life. Sports are not really, I don't believe that sports are, how to say it correct in English, they are something that builds you for life.
mm-hmm.
Understand? They are not something that define your life.
I see.
Because look at all the you have professional athletes in America, basketball players, they get contracts, millions of dollars a year. They finish sport and they don't have that right attitude. They lose all the money and they become homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they was in a sport where they make money, but nobody give them the mentality of a champion to come out of that life, sport life, and be successful as an individual. You know, like, yes, I know are there kids that they start sports and they want to become Olympic champion, but the most thing you take out of sports is discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a parent, if I will put my child in a sport, the first thing I will put them in is for them to learn to have discipline, to become to develop that mental toughness.
Right.
Understand? That's gonna help them in real life, because one day the athletic life is gonna be done.
Right.
And then you go to real life, and then you have to become, I don't know, an engineer, then you have to become a politician, then you have to become a lawyer, a doctor, whatever. You go in real life. And you see, that's something that nobody taught me. I didn't have that vision in my head, what I'm going to do when I finish gymnastics.
Right.
That was my whole entire life. I didn't even knew I can finish gymnastics. I didn't know like I'm going to stop gymnastics. I didn't know I can actually, you know what, when I was like 18, for example, after my head accident, I could stop gymnastics and do judo.
Mm-hmm.
The head coach of the judo team in the club where I was doing gymnastics was the police club in the capital. He told me that. He came to me, he's like, man, like you are like, how he said it? Because when I come back to training after that accident, I was at, we have like a small bar between, like on the, by the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And in the break, the coaches will go there and have a drink, and the athletes will come and have like a coffee. And I was there with one of my friends. He was a judoka at the club, and the head coach came over, and I was drinking a soda. To make it clear, I was drinking a Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I cannot believe that you come back to sport. Like after that accident, it's like I saw you, like they saw me in the parking when they took me out of the gym. They took me into a mat, like a landing mat, and they put me in the back of the car. I couldn't walk, like, and they didn't have a stretcher, you know. And he's like, I cannot believe you come back. It's like that takes like so much mental strength. It's like if you don't want to do gymnastics, you can do judo, you know. It's like you will be very good at judo. It's like you did gymnastics, you're very athletic. Like he knew, because I will go to the gym, to the judo, and I will play a little bit. But in my head, I couldn't picture myself doing judo. It was not something that,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Was
because
it your dream?
Yeah.
besides this was not, nobody ever told me you can do something more than this. Nobody taught me like, look, you can be more than just an athlete. You're not just an athlete. I was defined just by the winning in the gymnastics arena.
Right.
I was a national champion, I was in a national team, or I was an Olympic team, good. I was not good. Understand? Then I didn't know how to value myself other than going to win gold medal in gymnastics.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to teach the young kids, that they not define it by their medals. They not define it just by their performing in sport.
Mm-hmm.
They are defined by their attitude
And their character.
towards the character, towards that desire to be the best.
Yeah, I think that's what makes you guys great coaches, because you understand the role of coaching in the life of a human. It's to excel as much as you can in the sport, but more than that, to excel as a champion in life, and no matter what vocation you choose.
Because you see, like, athletes, they always feel bad when they go to a competition and don't win, especially young athletes. And gymnastics, you see, that's the hard part with gymnastics. Gymnastics is one of the hardest sports. It's the hardest sport in the Olympics, not because I did. I did other sports for my, like a hobby. And I did hard sports. There are sports that are very hard, but gymnastics is the most complex. Athleticism-wise, psychological-wise, it's like very, very demanding sport. But also is done with very young athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Understand, at a very young age, especially girls gymnastics. Think about at 16 years old, you are Olympic champion or you are retired. It's no other Olympic sport like that.
Yeah.
You have ice skating, right? Yeah. But it's not at that level of athleticism. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way.
Right.
You know, it's very demanding sport, and it's done with kids. Then as a coach, you have to be aware of that, because it's different. You see, like, for example, if you will coach the same way you coach a young gymnast, 12 years old, you will coach an 18 years old boxer. The guy will look at you like you are like some soft person. They'll be like, is this a coach, or like, who's this guy, right? But if you coach a 12 years old gymnast like you coach a boxer, you break her.
Yeah.
Like, you go to jail. It's totally abuse. Understand? It's a different, you have to have that understanding.
Right.
You work with something they are very strong, but they are very soft.
Right.
They are very sensitive.
Well, when you're coaching these young girls as early as 4 and 5, and,
yes, they are children.
As children, they're just learning basic things, and so you're instilling in them some self-worth, some discipline, self-discipline. It's a very. I'm glad you take it so responsibly.
Yes.
Thank you.
What would you say about all that we've said about illuminating champions, and how do you personally take your job as coaching?
For me, coaching is my whole heart, just like gymnastics was. And I say that because I know gymnastics was my whole heart as the athlete. So then approaching an athlete, I have to remember that it's probably her whole heart too. And I need to treat it that way. It is something fragile in her life that she is choosing to do because she loves it. And I don't want to be the person that shatters that for her. And I treat it delicately. And that doesn't mean having soft expectations that, just everything is allowable. It is teaching her the mental tools she needs to be strong in every single way and guide her on her journey through the gymnastics and in life correctly, meaning she needs to learn how to go through fear. She needs to be ambitious. She needs to learn how to go through doubt. She needs to learn how to set goals. She needs to learn how to first and foremost value herself as a person rather than her outcome of if she nailed her beam routine or not. That doesn't affect the rest of your life, but the way that you approach going into that beam routine and the way that you speak to yourself going into that beam routine and the way that you react to your performance does define the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's not the mistake that defines you. It's what you do after that mistake. It's what you do with the mistake. Understand?
Yeah, you have to expect mistakes and move on and get better.
Exactly.
So you make a mistake, you go back, you adjust it, you work on it, and you come back and you win. At one point, you are going to win.
Okay.
You giving up is you failing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I'm a big fan of how you approach it, and doing these podcasts just to help people understand your philosophy and your methodology and where your heart really is. So again, thanks for letting me be part of your Illuminating Champions message.
Thank you for helping us, and thank you for coaching in us and doing this. Because like I said in the first episode, like if it was not for you to be introduced in our life and for us to be introduced to you, I will not do this now. Understand?
Well, what's crazy is I have the same passion that you do. I was an artist, designer, went to design school, worked in an agency, owned an agency. What I found out is rather than launching products and companies, I love helping people launch their life. And so that's what I do. And I love it.
That's why sports are very good for young kids, launching their life.
Yeah.
You know, because it's getting them to a process that's so demanding at a young age, that's sharpening them. Right. You know what I mean? It's making them mentally tough, physically tough, teaching them discipline, you know.
Never been more important skills to have than today.
Yes.
No.
Definitely. The kids are just growing up in a totally different environment than the rest of us did. And it is a little bit more cutthroat, especially with social media. And it's very important for them to remember that they're valuable and know how to define what a valuable person is. And that's not defined by how good you are at something.
It's defined by your work ethic, you know, it's defined by your discipline.
And I like the way you define that champion's journey is one of trust and relationship between the coach, the athlete, the parent, that it all has to work together. And done correctly, everybody has the best intention of the growth of the athlete at heart.
Right.
There's no good coach without a good athlete, and it's not a good athlete without a good coach. They have to work together.
Yeah.
Like you can be the best coach in the world, and you don't have an athlete that match with you, it doesn't work. You can be the best athlete, and you don't have the coach that match you, doesn't work. Right. That's why I said the coach has to be honest. Understand? Because it's the coach the one, you know, as a coach, you know how much you can guide that athlete. And if you know you cannot guide it correctly, let it go, let it fly. You know what I mean? Give them the chance to go to somewhere where they can fly where they want to go. And that's my advice to coaches, I guess.
Well, good.
Is be honest. Because you see, I tell my girls, I tell them all the time, I want to be your coach in your worst moment. Because in the best moment is the easiest way to be your coach. When you won gold medal and you are on the first place, everybody wants a selfie. Understand? But when you fell off the beam and you are crying, that's when I want you to trust me, because that's when I have to give you the advice to stand up back, make the adjustment, and go back in that competition and win it. Understand? And that's the job of a coach, is to bring the champion out of the athlete.
Yeah.
That's a good place to wrap it up, I think.
And thank you everybody for listening. And I hope everybody understands my English. I'm working on it.
Thank you for listening to Illuminating Champions. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for our next episode.